Welcome back to the deep dive. Today our mission is, well, it's laser focused. We're heading to Texas, virtually, to look at a judicial experiment.
Right.
And it's one that asks this really profound question. What if the people judging you were your peers? And what if the goal wasn't punishment, but profound personalized self-improvement?
That's exactly it. We are diving into the world of teen courts. It's a whole network of programs, like the one founded in El Paso by Judge Michelle Morales.
And these are entirely peer-driven.
Entirely youth-led, peer-driven. And that's a very intentional design choice. The whole idea is to center the well-being of the teenager, to move them away from the traditional, punitive system before they even get sucked in.
And the need for something like this is just tragically clear. I mean, Judge Morales is very outspoken about the danger of the bad kid label.
Oh, absolutely.
She warns that once a student gets that label, especially if there's a real criminal record behind it, you've basically just signed their entry form into the school-to-prison pipeline. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
The stakes are just incredibly high. And the solution teen court offers is pure interception. We're talking about a voluntary alternative.
Kids under 17.
Right, under 17 who've committed a Class C misdemeanor. And, those are typically minor offenses. Think school fights, minor theft, maybe a small traffic violation.
But the real hook, the key mechanism here, is the promise of complete expungement.
That's the ultimate incentive, isn't it?
It has to be. You successfully complete the program, and that charge is just gone, wiped from your record completely.
So you avoid court fines, but more importantly, you sidestep those often intimidating, sometimes really traumatic first encounters with formal law enforcement.
Yeah, that initial negative branding seems foundational to the whole philosophy.
It absolutely is, and that gets us to the structure of it all. To even get into the program, the teen has to plead guilty.
Okay, so no trial.
No trial to determine fault. They admit the mistake, and by doing that, they're committing to the restorative process.
Okay, so let's unpack that. They plead guilty, but then they aren't judged by some adult in a robe. They're judged by a jury of high schoolers.
Exactly. A court of teenagers, by teenagers, for teenagers. And it just fundamentally changes the dynamic.
How so?
Well, since guilt is already established, the focus immediately shifts from what happened to why it happened.
I see.
The student jury, they engage in this process of deep empathy. They're asking the defendant questions about their circumstances, their home life, their economic situation, the pressures they were under. It's not a cross-examination, it's an inquiry.
So if they just admit guilt, where's the accountability? I mean, how do you make sure this isn't just a revolving door of leniency? Where is that line between empathy and just letting things slide?
That's a critical question. And the accountability is all in the second phase. The sentencing. They call it constructive penalties.
Constructive penalties.
Yeah, and as one student attorney, Alex Gonzalez, puts it, the program shifts the focus from branding the student as a permanent offender to treating them as a person who made a mistake.
And is now required to fix it.
Exactly. And the weight of that judgment, when it comes from your peers, people you actually relate to, it often holds so much more gravity than punishment from some, disconnected adult bureaucracy.
That distinction, peer accountability versus adult punishment, that's everything for a teenager, isn't it?
Yeah.
It turns it into a learning opportunity, not a condemnation.
Precisely. And that leads us right into how they design those penalties. The philosophy is that the sentence has to be specifically engineered to set the teen up for success.
Meaning it has to be feasible.
Genuinely feasible and individualized. It has to acknowledge the student's actual reality. This is not a one-size-fits-all penalty matrix.
Not at all.
And the main part of the sentence is community service, but this is where the definition just gets big. Well, really fascinating. It is so much broader than the traditional idea of, picking up trash on the highway.
Okay, this is where it gets really impactful. You said it expands to include almost any self-improvement action. Give me some examples.
The list is super personalized. It could be mandatory counseling to address underlying trauma.
Okay.
It could be a commitment to achieve a higher grade in a class they're failing. Or it might be joining an extracurricular activity, something that builds positive community and structure.
The idea is that the penalty has to be restorative.
To the self or to the community, yes.
So how do they track this? I mean, how does a court verify that a student got a C instead of an F in algebra or went to 10 counseling sessions? Is there an adult checking in?
There is. That's where the juvenile case managers come in. They're like mentors and verification points. A case manager like Sophia Garza is vital. For a grade, the student has to bring in a progress report.
Makes sense.
For counseling, they might need a letter from the therapist verifying attendance without, of course, sharing any confidential details. It's about verification, but with a supportive hand, not a suspicious one.
And that commitment to feasibility you mentioned, it extends to their logistical reality, too. I remember the source mentioning students who live across the border.
Exactly. Manager Garza mentioned that she works with students who live in Mexico but go to school in El Paso. Their community service is measured by their commitment to better themselves, no matter which side of the border that action happens on.
Wow.
That level of flexibility is it's something you'd never see in the traditional system.
It really highlights the purpose of the sentence.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to that community connection. There was a Williamson County attorney, Sherry Maximoff, who suggested this kind of volunteering creates a sense of community ownership.
It does. It connects their action directly to their environment. Maximoff's point is that if you help improve your surroundings, you're less likely to act against them. If you're out there cleaning up the neighborhood, you feel invested.
You're less likely to go back and, litter or commit criminal mischief because you see that space as yours.
Yep.
You helped build it.
It builds civic muscle.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So let's pivot a bit to why this system is so necessary, especially in the context of Texas policy. We know the state has seen an increase in the criminalization of youth.
Yeah, especially students of color, through more and more law enforcement on school campuses. The data it's alarming. Black students are massively overrepresented in school-based arrests, in court referrals, in use of force incidents.
Students are actually reporting a growing fear of officers on their own campus.
And that fear itself is just completely counterproductive to education and to rehabilitation.
Which is why Judge Morales stresses that teen court makes sure teens are not dealing with anyone they see as formal law enforcement.
It actively bypasses the very system that has been shown to disproportionately target and, frankly, traumatize vulnerable kids. It leverages positive peer pressure instead of coercive authority.
And when a student is standing in front of a jury of their classmates, people who get it, who live in the same neighborhoods, they're more likely to listen.
And crucially, to open up.
That opening up seems vital. Manager Garza observed this firsthand, right? With adults, they're cautious.
They're so cautious. But once they realize it's their peers judging them, they start to share these crucial, often overlooked details about what's really going on in their lives.
And that's where the aha moments are for everyone involved. The sources were full of examples showing that the circumstances are often way beyond the teen's control.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of those. I'm thinking of that story from the volunteer Audrey Seigman about the teen cited for driving unqualified.
Oh, that case is heartbreaking. It just highlights a failure of infrastructure, not a failure of morality. The teen wasn't driving for fun.
No, their parents were working, struggling financially, and they relied on this kid to drive their younger siblings to school.
The teen was in an impossible position. Break the law or fail your family. A traditional court just sees the infraction. The student jury, though, they saw the necessity. They saw the socioeconomic strain.
And what about the students facing, say, language or cultural barriers? That's a whole other layer.
Right. Student attorney Gargi Singh recalled a case with a recent immigrant student charged with theft. This student just didn't fully grasp the American legal system or even the nuance of the English used in the warnings.
So it was a mistake from confusion, not malice.
Exactly. And a teen court can order, remedial education or community support based on that context. A traditional court might just slap them with a fine their family can't possibly afford.
And we can't talk about youth behavior without talking about mental health. Are these peer juries really equipped to see when a crime is actually a cry for help?
They absolutely are, often more so than a busy adult judge. Alex Gonzalez observes that a common thread in so many cases is declining mental health.
So risky behavior is a coping mechanism.
For depression, anxiety, trauma.
Yes.
And teen court's personalized sentencing ensures the resolution isn't jail, but a requirement to get professional mental health support. A constructive penalty that treats the illness, not just the symptom.
That is just a fundamental difference in how justice is served. So let's look at the outcomes. Does this actually work? Does it disrupt the pipeline, or do we see repeat offenses?
Judge Morales is crystal clear on this. By giving the child a positive, supportive experience and then physically dismissing that ticket, teen court changes how the child defines themselves.
They go from offender to community member in training.
Right. And the empirical evidence for this is incredibly compelling, especially from the older programs.
Staggering, isn't it?
It is. Judge Elaine Marshall, she oversees the Houston Teen Court. Her program started way back in 2000. She reports no repeat offenders.
Wait, No repeat offenders.
Among the thousands of teens who have successfully completed the program, that near-zero recidivism rate is the ultimate testament to this model.
That is a truly shocking success rate. Policymakers everywhere should be looking at that. And the effect isn't just on the defendants. What about the volunteers, the student attorneys and jurors?
Well, they're getting a hands-on masterclass in restorative justice and nuanced legal thinking. The volunteer Gargi Singh points out that the program teaches them that real change requires empathy and understanding.
Not just slapping on punitive labels.
Right. And in a state like Texas, where school curricula can sometimes shy away from complex topics about social justice, this experience becomes a kind of shadow education in civics and human rights.
It teaches them to look at intent and circumstance, not just the outcome. They learn the difference between justice and retribution by actually practicing real justice.
Yeah.
But we have to put this success against the current political backdrop, which unfortunately seems to be marching in the complete opposite direction. There's a powerful resurgence of tough-on-crime policies.
That's the tension, yeah. We have to acknowledge it. On one hand, you see policy proposals like the conservative Federal Agenda Project 2025, which explicitly wants to eliminate training for federal law enforcement that focuses on de-escalation.
Right.
And at the same time, you hear rhetoric from figures like former President Trump promising to increase the militarization of police and expand incarceration.
So when the prevailing political wind is blowing toward escalation and punishment, the very existence of the teen court model becomes even more crucial.
It really does.
It stands as this proven empirical challenge to the whole idea that harsher punishment creates safer communities.
It's an essential counter-narrative. By focusing on building community ownership and providing support, Teen Court is actively creating a generation of students, both defendants and volunteers, who understand that real reform is possible.
They gain the confidence to advocate for change because they've seen an alternative path. They've walked it.
That's right. They've administered it firsthand.
So this deep dive really shows us that Teen Court is so much more than just a diversion program. It's a powerful model of restorative, peer-led justice.
It replaces those destructive labels with real, personalized opportunities for growth and community ownership.
It's the definitive counter-narrative to the idea that deterrence has to equal harshness.
And the confidence it builds is generational. It tells vulnerable kids that their story matters, that their circumstances will be heard, and that justice doesn't have to break them. It can actually be the thing that lifts them up.
And this leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. The teen court system shows us that sometimes the most effective form of justice isn't about punishment handed down from the top. It's about shared responsibility and deep understanding that comes from the bottom up. So, given the near-zero recidivism rates we're seeing, what other parts of our justice system, maybe even adult misdemeanor courts, could benefit from a framework rooted primarily in empathy? Think about the implications of that radical trust.
We'll see you soon for the next deep dive.